if we don't resolve the following Gauteng 13 problems, being here will mean nothing. They are water, cable theft and vandalism, non-functional traffic lights, potholes, crime and lawlessness, mushrooming of informal settlements, electricity, in particular load shedding and load reduction in our communities, failing infrastructure, especially within our CBDs, and unemployment.
Mihla yonke izakhamuzi zakuleli zivuka kwebiwe izintambo zogesi, amarobhothi awasebenzi, potholes, amapayipi amanzi aqhumile, indle igcwele imigwaqo. Umthelela walokhu ukungafiki kwezidingonqangi, ukuvalwa kwamabhizinisi, kuphele imisebenzi, ukuncipha kwezivakashi nokuletha imali kuleli, kanti nabatshali izimali mbukeli baye banqikaze ukutshala imali lapho kuneyinkinga zengqalasizinda. Umthelela walokhu konke uyabonakala ngomnotho ongakhuli, but how do we fix this? Asikubingelele ke mbukeli sikwamukela ohlelweni Asikhulume Let's Talk. Igama lami ngingubongiwe uMakhumalo waKwaZwane. Mbukela sikukhubuze ke ukuthi ungaba ingxenye lolu hlelo ngokushayela ucingo sizwe umbono noma umbuzo wakho. Inombolo zethu zocingo 0117140677 noma 0117140678. Mbukeli siyatholakala einkundleni zokuxhumana ku-X @SABC Izindaba, kanti ikhasi lethu ku-Facebook SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kubelula ke mbukeli ungaqala #Asikhulume, #SABC News, bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Asikhulume. Mbukeli, Makhana residents under the banner of concerned residents, faith-based organizations and civil organizations embarked on a march last week calling on the mayor and the speaker of Makhana municipality to step down over service delivery concerns caused by infrastructure challenges. SABC News reporter Lerato Fekisi spoke to them.
One of the main issues in Makhanda has been the issue of water. There have been several attempts to try and fix the issue, but it's still going on. There's also issues of a dilapidated infrastructure. There are potholes. Are these some of the problems you're also marching against?
Yes, major problems. You know, when it comes to roads, I feel for people that are using taxis, but the roads affects communication between this town and other town. It affects business actually directly. So business people are suffering, taxi people are suffering. We suffer when we take our children to school because we have to change tires, we have to change the parts of the cars. But the major thing is water. You can have everything, but when you don't have water, you have nothing.
Mbukela ukudinga idakabanzi ngalokho asamukele ihambeli zethu Nombulelo Nyathela okhulumela infrastructure South Africa ehhovisini lika Mongameli kanye nesazi sezomnotho uOwen Nkomo asenibingelele sinamukele ohlelweni Asikhulume Let's Talk. I'm going to start with you Nombulelo, sizwa njalo igidigidi zamarandi ziyadingeka ukuthi we must fix the infrastructure ukuthi ingqalasizinda abantu bakwazi ukuthi bayisebenzise umnotho ukwazi ukuthi ukhule, kodwa sichazele kafishane nje ukuthi in your own assessment kubi kangakanani?
So I think the first thing to say is what infrastructure South Africa is solving for. What is this problem we're solving for? And essentially the NDP tells us that by 2030, 30% of the GDP must be made up of infrastructure investments. 2/3 of those from the private sector, 1/3 from government. And I can tell you now we are far off that target. And to put it into context, it means that each year in South Africa, about 8 projects must come on stream that are the size of Bochubai or Gautrain, massive catalytic infrastructure projects. And our inability to do this essentially means that we'll never reach that target. We further need to spend about 6 billion rand in project preparation to be able to get those projects on stream. We are far off the target. Guess what? At Infrastructure South Africa, we only receive 600 million rand over the MTEP for project preparation. So in the absence of that project preparation, in the absence of those projects coming on stream, we ultimately don't reach that target, that those trillions of rands that we're supposed to galvanize in infrastructure investments essentially will not come on stream if we don't get these things in order.
Mr. Nkomo, what becomes the impact of that?
Obviously, if we don't have infrastructure that is enough to meet the demand in the country, it means we will not be able to take advantage of amathuba khona ukuhwebelana nozakwethu bangaphandle. Bengenza isibonelo nje i-Transnet over the past 5 years, they've done a lot of work ukuze banyuse i-recovery rate ye-infrastructure ebesimoshakele, which is positive. But over the 10-15 years that have passed, silahlekelwa amathuba amaningi, cishe hundreds of billions of dollars that we could have exported ama-minerals esiwehamba phansi, and because we didn't have the infrastructure, we could not export those things. So there's a lot of impact that happens. You know, water is a problem, and it's going to continue over the next few years as well.
Kuba namuphi umthelela uma ubheka ezomnotho, because namhlanje if we're talking about the GDP esithi awukhulanga umnotho ngalendlela ekufanele ukuthi ukhule ngayo. Kukhona abantu abathi umnotho awukhuli ngani ngo6%, kodwa sofika kanjani ku6% uma ngabe thina umnotho asikwazi ukuthi suxhasa ukuthi ukhule ngalendlela. So mangabe siyahluleka ukuthi ama projects, especially lawa i-target mhlambe ye 2030 vision 2030 NDP, uma ngaba sikwazi ukufinyelela kuona, kuba namuphi umthelela lo kwezomnotho?
Umthelela khona ukuthi i-quantum ye-GDP yethu gets affected, because those hundreds of billions of ngabafakwe infrastructure, they firstly would go into what we call physical infrastructure formation, which is factored in with GDP. Nanoguti, if we don't fix our railways, if we don't fix our dams, if we don't fix our electricity networks, and all of those things, we sell them over as a country, and in some of those areas we're losing out on the ability to sell you know, our services and goods, so that we can bring back money as okhulisa umnotho wethu. So ngempela mazo se Africa asenomsebenzi omningi kakhulu okumele awenze ukuze sifike la sithi infrastructure yethu can carry our ambitions yethu as a continent.
Nombulelo, umubheka infrastructure South Africa, which is where you come from, was put forward as an accelerated kind of a way in order to be able for us as a country to accelerate infrastructure programs. You were then in the office of the president, a lot of people looking at this saying that, you know what, the fact that we even have a body that's now going to focus on this, it speaks to the political will. Uma ngabe we are not meeting the targets, then one would ask, where does it place everything? Is there still a will to fix what's going on?
Absolutely. So infrastructure is definitely a long game. Infrastructure South Africa was set up in 2020 with its predecessor, the IIO. And essentially we were looking at putting together a credible and robust infrastructure pipeline that could be bankable, that could draw in investments. And of course, then further, we must close that infrastructure investment gap by looking at different mechanisms to finance and fund this pipeline. This has been 5 years of work that infrastructure has put in to be able to get to where we are now, where we now have a project preparation facility, which is able essentially to assist projects to get to bankability. So in the absence of that, there will be no bankable pipeline to speak of for investors to look at. And
did it have to take 5 years, though?
So, well, we wouldn't say 5 years. We already have 34 projects under preparation. It's not exactly 5 years. I mean, I think it's definitely before that, but it certainly was a bit of a journey. It also was a bit of trial and error in the beginning. We were just 5 people in the office. The team has now grown to just about 47 only in the last 2 years. So there really was a little bit of heavy lifting that had to be done. But it's not to say that Infrastructure South Africa was not doing anything. If we look at our strategic integrated project pipeline, for example, 19 projects completed, 82 under construction, others are in procurement, and of course others are lagging behind, but we're pushing those. 34 projects we have under preparation with our own facility that the National Treasury has given us. There's a little bit of progress. It is sluggish, it is slow, more could be done, but certainly nothing is not being done.
Just before I move back to you, Owen, which maybe 2 projects would you say currently are underway?
Under construction, there's quite a few, but in the I like speaking about the Northern Cape, Hull Street. It's a human settlements project because when we started, there was nothing. It was flooded, and it's really nice to see now a lot of the top structures have gone up. In fact, I think it's nearing completion, if not maybe almost just complete. In KZN, Umgeni, it's a water project taking place. I think the Minister of Water and Sanitation was there. My Minister, McPherson, was also there the other day, so also under construction as well. So there's quite a few. energy projects, which are private sector-led projects, many under construction, to speak about SCATEC, which is now, I think, completed, SCATEC Canehard, which we assisted in terms of regulatory unblocking and so on. So yeah, there is a bit of progress.
Umubuka umsebenzi ochazwayo nomsebenzi esiwubonayo on a daily basis when it comes to infrastructure projects, Owen, would you say that can we see as South Africans what is being done?
Look, you can see, depending on where you are, right? But I think what's important, in my view, is that as a country, we need to make sure we get to a point where the whole country is turned into construction sites. And that definitely will then have an impact on the GDP. Abantu bazothola amathuba emisebenzi. But one question engibona ngathi ubalekile ukuthi yini le dalama delays in all of these projects, where you see projects that can be done by the private sector in 3 years and completed. Why are they taking longer in the government? You know, last a project overruns. Where you get a project that was supposed to be R1 billion, now we're paying 1.3 billion rands. Is that out of design? Is it something that we're doing wrong? It's very important for us as a country to see impendulo to that question, because the private sector delivers on time, but on the other side, work that relates to government is quite complicated in terms of the delivery times. We do finance infrastructure projects on our side through one of our entities. Where you find guys are struggling to get just 20 million or get 50 million rands to buy material. So we do these things, we award work, but we don't provide the financing that's required for the guys to start, you know, with the site establishment and things like that. So kubalekile ukuthi sizama ukubheka ukuthi yini lengaka edala lama delays.
And in about 30 seconds, what's that really is causing the delays?
A project preparation. In the absence of early stage preparation, you will not be able to make good funding decisions, and projects have overruns. So that early stage is very important, and that's the space that infrastructure.
How long does it take?
The project preparation, it depends on the scale of the project. So for example, Rooival is a good example that we're preparing now in Tshwane. Could take 18 months, could take a little bit longer, depending on the scale and the nature of the project. But it must be done. There is no shortcut to that. There's no shortcut. Yeah.
Interesting. Mbugeli, I do hope you're learning something. We'll talk about the impact of this infrastructure issue, especially kosoma business Mbugeli. Ucabange nje kwesinye isikhathi mhlawumbe usomabhizinisi uzothi mina ingqalasizinda uma ingafiki la ngikhona okusho ukuthi mhlawumbe kwesinye isikhathi ibhizinisi lami kufanele ukuthi ngilivale lokho kusho ukuthi imisebenzi yaphela Mbugeli kodwa sokhuluma ngalokho masibuye Kevin.
Infrastructure has affected us in such a way that we have lost so much customers, you understand? We have lost customers and we are also losing money as a business because if there's no electricity, we can't maybe keep our stock in good temperature like cold chains. Remember, we are running an hospitality like food and beverage industry, whereby we need to make sure that we have fresh food for our customers, and then we keep consistency in what we are giving.
I'm doing a barber job. I'm a barber, so we have an issue with a few things like electricity and the water. We need the water. Sometimes if there's no water, so we can't wash hair. Customer hair, we can't wash anything. We can't give them water. So another issue for the electricity. The electricity, when there's no electricity, we can't use a hair dryer, we can't use a clipper, we can't do work.
Mbugeli izimvo zosomabhizinisi lezo ake sibone ukuthi nina nithini einkundleni zokuxhumana ukuthi siza ukuthi nina mhlambe nithi how can we fix this problem, especially Mbugeli umubuka nje infrastructure ingqalasizinda ukuthi iba nomthelela ongakanani emnothweni. Sikhuluma ngomnotho ongakhuli ngalendlela okufanele ukhule ngayo, kodwa Mbugeli senze njani uma ngabe ingqalasizinda yona qala iba yinto eyi-challenge kakhulu eNingizimu Afrika. Ke sizwe ke sibone ukuthi nithini ku Facebook njengoba sinicelile ukuthi akene sinika masu nisicuphise sibone ukuthi senze njani ngokuthi mhlambe nithini na uNhlanhla uthi uma kungaphela lento yamathenda imisebenzi ibuyele kuhulumeni. Unhlanhla ke umsweli ke loyo Xolani uthi uhulumeni kumele ashintshe ingqalasizinda endala afake entsha abophe labo abadla imali yokwakhiwa kwayo nalaba abayicekela phansi. And I suppose it speaks to the issue ye vandalism mbukeli ngoba futhi njengoba sikhuluma nje sikhuluma ngokwebiwa kwamakhebuli sikhuluma ngokuthi mbukeli abantu bake bafike bantshontshe what we call copper cables and ubone ukuthi khona abantu ababoshwayo kodwa kwesinye isikhathi kube nomthelela lokho futhi mawubuka ama railway lines ubuka ukuthi abantu la behlala khona mbukeli amabhizinisi abawakwazi ukuthi asebenze ngoba banawo ugesi kwesinye isikhathi banawo amanzi kwesinye isikhathi mbukeli bahlala isikhathi eside bengakwazi ukuthi bafinyelele la befinyelela khona kakhulukazi laba abanye bahamba ngeitimela mbukeli. Let's talk about this issue ngokuthi issue kuthini when it comes to economic losses nokuthi singayinqoba kanjani into yokuthi ama project mbukela seqaliwe kwenziwa njani ukuthi kungantshontshwa ama cables. And Nombulelo, that's an issue that is quite a big one. A lot of South Africans speak about vandalism to infrastructure ngoba it's one thing uqala project, it's another to keep it safe. How much of an issue is this?
This is a big issue ventilated recently actually at the construction summit that Minister McPherson hosted. And essentially they've now signed an MOU between our minister and the Minister of Policing and Treasury to really zoom into this matter. So we all understand that besides the cable theft, it's the halting of infrastructure projects when they're underway. It's the intimidation of those that are implementing infrastructure projects. So these are things that were ventilated at length. It's not something that Infrastructure South Africa deals with directly, of course. It's not our competence, but we can confirm that that MOU by the ministers is being fully utilized by the law enforcement officers.
Umbubheka lokhu Owen kuba nenkulu indima okuyidlalayo uma ubheka ukuthi mhlawumbe umuntu ezoqala umsebenzi uyayiqalela nenkampani yakhe encane nangu usetholile ithenda uyakwazi ukungena la uzozakhela kodwa kufika abantu bethi sicela ukungena ngaphakathi uma singawuthola u30% awukwazi ukusebenza la. Lokho kuba nomthelelo omkhulu ikakhulukazi uma ubheka mhlawumbe usomabhizinisi oyizamelayo othakanika abantu umsebenzi.
Kakhulu dadewethu le genge ebizwa ngamadela ngokubona inkinga kakhulu ngaphandle ngoba they delay ama projects sometimes where the project has started noma ikaqala ukuze uqala iproject bafike bakutshela ukuthi wena njengoba uzosebenza la endaweni yangakithi sicela u30% wale project. If the project is 100 million thina sicela u30 million ngaphambilini bebe ucela cash but sebefundile manje ukuthi kumele leyo mali uyisebenzele sebecela umsebenzi kanti ke the people that are running these projects kuyabasiza ukuthi mabezoqala iproject ba engage community basebenze na community to allocate some of the work streamlines to the community as well. For example, security. Ungathola ukuthi kukhona ibhizinisi lasendaweni that provides security services. You give them that, you give them water, you give them sanitation and some of those things. But again, it's going to continue to be a big challenge. And Mr. Bob McPherson had said he was going to fight these guys. And we wish him well because they're part of the reason why some of these projects stall for a very long period of time.
And when you look at it, Owen, in some of these cases, what will it take, particularly in you know, that's one aspect, but in another aspect is that umuntu mhlawumbe oselokishini uzokutshela ukuthi sizokuthiwa kuntshontshwe cable ngale sohlala mhlawumbe iviki singenawo ugesi ngale kuntshontshwe ini kwaqo sekuqhuma itransformer thina singabantu baselokishini siyezwa kuthiwa kunama projects enziwa amakhulu kodwa sikuboni thina asubona umthelelo walama projects ngoba thina sihlale sintshontshela cable sihlale singabantu ukuthi mhlawumbe abana gas abanawo amanzi.
Yes, enye into ngibona ngathi communication dadewethu ngiyakisho mangiphawula ngaphandle ukuthi I think that our government does lots of work but they don't market it. They do not communicate what they're doing. The success stories are not communicated. I guess they're focused on just delivering lama projects. But again, ukwebiwa kwama cables and things like that and transformers, it causes a lot of stress. We are doing a whole lot of electrical projects at the moment and Kuma communities, we can see the impact of that, that theft of the cables, nama transformers, and I think that is very important for the state to work closely with abazokuphepa, amaphoyisa, and private security to avoid, or rather at least ukuthi bagweme ukubhebhetheka kwale culture yokuntshontsha.
Angeke ngithathe uzingisile from the Eastern Cape ngaphambi ukuthi ngibuyele kuwe Nombulelo. Zingisile sawubona?
Eke sawubona umsakazi wami uPresident ona kwaKhiba.
Siyabonga President.
Umsasazo wami apha mina into endingafane ndiyiveze isolution.
Qhubeka.
Isolution ukuthi ezintwezi uba uyaqwalasela ama-robot nalento yokuqhaqhwa kwama-roof ezindlini nale yokuqhawulwa kwentambo emizini ibangelwa zezi scrapyard eziningi. Uba ngabe kungavalwa lezi scrapyard eziningi then lezi ezisele kube zezi ezikwaziyo ukuba zibe manageable ukuthi kungathathwa amakhopha ngoba sekungasenama-robot nje sekutshontshwa namakhebula apha ezindlini ezantambo ezimnyama zika-Eskom ziyongena ezindlini bayaziqhawula bazise scrapyard makuke kuvalwe ezi scrapyard kube zizo ezisetshwayo kube zizo futhi nezimonithwa kakhulu yiyo lento le bangela bangoku nokuba utshontshwa izinto zabantu zihambe ziyothengiswa kwezi scrapyard ezingana-order.
Siyabonga kakhulu Brazethi ngizothi uNombulelo masibuya ezitolo akwazi ukuthi akuphendule kulokho ukuthi mhlambe is that something that we really need to look deeper into it, because I remember a few years ago it was a headache. It is something that even the country is looking to dealing with. Kodwa umlalela uyasho ukuthi emalokishini abantu bafike bantshontshela izinto ngoba bayazi ukuthi bayoyithengisa escrapyard umuntu uzozenzela nje leyo madlana encane abuye futhi lokho futhi uma ucabanga nje wena mbukela uhlele ekhaya ukuthi kuba namuphi umthelela kuwena kodwa siyabuya sokuphendula nje khona manje. Mbukeli, time does fly. Sesifike emaphethweleni ohlelo kodwa ake siza ukuthi isombululo zalenkinga zingaba yini. Nombulelo, you heard just before we went to the break uthi Brazethi Eastern Cape mhlambe ama scrapyards they must be shut down.
It's not something that Infrastructure South Africa can certainly make a decision on, but I think I understand his frustration on what we call last mile infrastructure. It's what comes to your home, electricity getting to you, water getting to you, and that really rests with the municipality. So it doesn't matter if we've built high-rise dams and we've got the water treatment plants and we have underlying infrastructure, but if we don't have the stuff that reticulates, that gets it to your house, that's the problem, and that's where most of the crime happens. We ourselves are looking at intervening in municipalities. We've adopted 4, looking at particularly municipal trading services, water, electricity, and waste. And we want to see what difference we can make. We've committed to the president that we'll deliver this turnaround infrastructure in 24 months, testing all our methodologies, testing all our thinking and our capacity, really sweating our assets, which is the people we have at ISA, to see if we can make a difference. So we understand the frustration, but I think let's see what we can do in these 24 months.
You owe us a comeback then. Right on that point, you owe us a comeback. Owen, in the immediate, what should be done, especially to improve your lived experience, Abantu?
I think it's a big issue is the expertise of the people that are delivering the work. It's important. And making sure that people are allowed to do the work they need to do without, you know, this corruption that we've seen. Corruption is a big deal, and I believe it contributes a lot to the, you know, bureaucracy and all of those things, and delays in the infrastructure space. So there's a lot of work that the guys have to do, and the president has to make sure he implements more secure environment for projects to be delivered, and to make the capital available as well on time for people to start the projects, because you get awarded but you don't have the money to start.
Capital. Kodwa nginibonge nobabili ukuthi niqhamuke nizokhuluma nathi nifike sikhulume about this issue of infrastructure. Nombulelo uyasikweleta upart 2 sifuna ukwazi ukuthi sibone ukuthi kuhamba kanjani ngoba abantu bayasho ukuthi yebo we can see the big projects kodwa uma ngabe akufike kumakhaya kithina it doesn't make a difference. Kodwa mbukeli nizwele sethemba ukuthi nawe lapha ekhaya ukwazela ukuthi mhlawumbe uphenduleke embuzweni ongabe unayo. Besinaye uNombulelo Nyathela okhulumela i-infrastructure South Africa ehhovisi lika Mongameli kanye no Owen Nkomo who's a director of Inkunzi Wealth Group. Mbukeli ayixabene asihlangane futhi ngeviki elizayo.